Welcome to another explainer. Look, if you've ever gone through a massive life change or a tough heartbreak and just felt completely turned upside down, you already know it does way more than just make you sad, right? Today, we're unpacking the actual psychology behind emotional reconstruction, pulling straight from some really fascinating source material. We're going to look at how a major shift shakes up your identity, your routine, and literally how your brain processes the future. You know that feeling when you're just, say, walking down the grocery store aisle on a random Tuesday, and boom, this massive wave of overwhelm just stops you dead in your tracks? Yeah, that. Let's dive right in and look at the architecture of how our minds and hearts actually rebuild.
So it's the question that hits you out of nowhere. Why am I so emotional? Well, heartbreak and transitions cause what is essentially a full body disorientation. A lot of us think of heartbreak as, strictly an emotional thing, but it heavily impacts the mind and your physiological body too. You aren't just feeling sad, your body is experiencing a total system shock. We're talking cortisol spikes, wrecked sleep patterns, intense brain fog. Your nervous system is basically sounding a blaring alarm, treating the loss of your normal as an actual physical emergency.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how our source material completely reframes this question. Why can't I let go? Feeling like you can't move on? That isn't a sign of weakness at all. It is literally a nervous system reaction. See, your brain maps out your reality. It builds these deep neural pathways attached to specific people, daily routines, even just the emotional patterns you're used to. So when life suddenly flips the script, your inability to let go is kind of like a mechanical glitch. Your nervous system is basically slamming the brakes, going, wait, what happened to the world I mapped out? It's just frantically grasping for the structure it was built to expect. And that brings us to a super fascinating piece of survival psychology. Why on earth do we miss things that actively caused us pain? Simply put, your brain gets intensely attached to familiar energy. It wants to hold on to the structure it already knows, no matter if that structure was super healthy or completely toxic. It's just a biological reflex to sudden change. To put it bluntly, your brain actually favors predictable pain over unpredictable freedom. Why? Because predictability just requires way less energy to process. Crazy, right? Moving on to section 1, Anatomy of a Broken Heart. A total system shock. Okay, so psychology teaches us that humans are wired to crave certainty. During big transitions, our brains are just desperate for clear answers, absolute closure, direction, consistency, and above all, emotional safety. But, as our source material points out, transitions almost never give us immediate clarity. And to the primitive part of your brain, a lack of clear answers isn't just frustrating, it feels like a literal threat to your survival. So, if you're feeling incredibly confused right now, that is completely normal. Your brain is just frantically trying to rebuild a sense of stability in an environment that, well, currently doesn't have any. Think about this. Sometimes life pushes you into a season where literally nothing feels familiar anymore. You've outgrown the old habits and the old relationships, but you haven't quite stepped into the new version of yourself yet. It's like you're just standing in the hallway between two doors. That middle space where your heart is grieving the old you while your mind is trying to meet the new you, man, it is completely exhausting. Let's move to section 2 and see how this builds into what we call the trap of familiarity, craving what we know. We really need to contrast two concepts here because this is absolutely crucial. Familiarity is not the same thing as safety. And the problem is, our brains confuse the two all the time. Even terribly unhealthy situations can become emotionally familiar. It's kind of like choosing to stay shivering inside a freezing cold house just because you know exactly where all the furniture is, instead of stepping outside into the dark to find a warm fire. When you finally walk away from a painful season, your mind might actually crave the exact thing that hurt you, simply because the unknown feels so incredibly uncomfortable. Craving the familiar doesn't mean you're weak, it literally just means you're human. That brings us to section 3, Why the Heart Deceives. Survival Psychology. Now, here is the central complication of this whole explainer. Our source dives into this ancient, profound piece of wisdom from the biblical book of Jeremiah, which warns that the heart is deceitful above all things. But what does that actually mean? Well, modern psychology backs this up flawlessly. It's not saying your heart is like fundamentally evil or malicious. Actually, scratch that. It's explaining that when a heart gets wounded by pain, rejection, or trauma, it goes into hyperprotective overdrive. It distorts reality, it prioritizes immediate, known comfort over long-term unknown healing. Your heart holds onto these unhealed wounds, and when it feels threatened, it will tell you things that feel 100% true in the moment, but are really just misguided defense mechanisms designed to stop you from ever taking a risk again. Let's unpack exactly how that deception works. Because a hurting heart, desperate for that familiar safety we just talked about, will absolutely lie to you. It'll try to build a fortress out of fear. It's going to try to convince you that you're not enough. It will tell you that nobody cares. It'll whisper that healing is flat out impossible, or that you just have to stay permanently stuck in survival mode. It feeds you these bleak, heavy narratives to keep you sheltered from anything new or uncertain. Because, it reasons that if you never hope for anything better, you can literally never be disappointed again.
On to Section 4, the reconstruction process. Active transformation.
I love this metaphor from the text. Think about a caterpillar. Inside that cocoon, it probably looks like total, absolute chaos before it becomes something new, right? It's the same for us. When you're healing, feeling confused isn't a sign that you're failing. It's actual evidence of deep, active transformation happening beneath the surface. Your heart struggles because it wants peace right this second. But genuine growth, that takes immense time. Healing is messy. It is rarely linear. And just like that biological metamorphosis, it often feels like complete chaos before the clarity finally hits. So over time, a really tangible psychological reconstruction starts to take place. Think of this as the master blueprint for your recovery. It happens in a sequence. First, your nervous system begins to calm down from that initial shock, through giving it time, focusing on your breathing, and actively removing yourself from the triggers. Second, as that physical panic starts to fade, your thoughts actually become clearer. Whether it's through journaling, therapy, or just creating some mental distance, you start processing reality objectively again. And third, your identity becomes stronger. Your emotions stop dictating every single moment of your day, and your heart slowly relearns that, hey, it actually survived the very thing it thought was going to destroy it. This is a big one. True emotional resilience requires holding two conflicting realities at once. Listen, resilience is not pretending you never hurt. It isn't acting numb to the world. Healing is realizing, I can hurt and still heal. I can grieve and still grow. I can be completely confused and still move forward. You hold both of those truths at the exact same time without letting one cancel out the other. It's this profound realization that the difficult season you're in, it isn't a punishment. It's a reconstruction project. Your mind is actively relearning peace. And our final section, Section 5, Maintaining Your Heart, Daily Protection. Gentle heart maintenance comes down to intentional, everyday choices. Look, not every day is about aggressively trying to fix yourself. Sometimes you literally just need to protect your peace. Your heart desperately needs truth. It needs real rest, grace, healthy people around you, healthy words, and honestly, most importantly, it needs moments where you just stop attacking yourself. You've got to quiet that harsh inner critic that's constantly judging how fast you're healing. Our source warns that constant, unmanaged stress will slowly harden your heart over time, making it brittle. But intentional healing, real rest, and deep kindness, that will soften it right back up. So the crucial point is this ultimate marker of emotional maturity right here. I don't have to become cold to become wise. Wow. You can absolutely protect your peace and still love deeply. You can set incredibly firm boundaries and still deeply care about people. You can forgive someone and still choose to keep your distance from them. You can heal completely and still honor the memory of what hurt you. You absolutely do not have to lose your inherent warmth just to protect yourself from the world. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Some of the absolute greatest, most enduring healing happens when you finally stop asking the painful question, why did this happen to me? And you start asking the empowering question, what is this teaching me about myself? That single courageous shift in your internal monologue, it changes absolutely everything. It turns your hardest seasons into the exact tools that build your emotional endurance, and it reconnects you with the beautiful parts of yourself that stress tried to completely silence. Remember, your heart isn't meant to carry a constant war. It deserves gentleness. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this explainer today, and I really hope this helps you on your own path of reconstruction. See you next time.